Nels here for LowKickMMA. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Brandon Lyons, and Brandon was with me the other day to preview UFC 270, and today we're going to recap it because it was a brilliant event. Plenty of big moments to dissect, and we'll start with the main event of the evening. Francis Ngannou is now the undisputed heavyweight champion after defeating interim champ Ciryl Gane by unanimous decision. What did you make of it, Brandon? It was a strange performance from Ngannou, but he got it done in the end, and you know, in my opinion, he looked great in parts.
Well, he looked fantastic, and considering we'll circle back to the prediction show, you got me on that one. I had gone all the way, you had Ngannou, and I think we agreed that like the value in betting was going to be with Ngannou because it seemed like sort of a 50-50 pick 'em type fight, and he was the underdog. But like I was saying to you before we started the show here, like I no one knew he had it in him like that, and anyone saw if he was going to win, it was going to be by knockout, and he just really implemented the whole big brother, little brother thing on Ciryl Gane there. When it got to the nitty gritty, he got the better of him, and Francis showed everyone he had stuff in the tank that no one knew he had. What did you make of it?
I thought it was brilliant because obviously when we did speak about it, I said I think he'll be losing and then uncork something, and I thought it'd be a monster's punch, obviously, but then he just brought the wrestling out the bag, and I think we did see a little bit of it in the Stipe fight, and that's why you know, just before the new year, I was saying that was the performance of the year because I didn't think he had that. And to see just a glimmer of it, I was really impressed by. And then to see it actually on full display this weekend, I was actually sitting it, like, for us UK fans, this is about 6 a.m. when this fight's going on. And I'm sitting in bed watching it, just laughing my head off because it's actually hilarious to see Francis, this monstrous puncher, just wrestling, throwing people through the air. It was just such a brilliant evolution of him as a fighter, and I was so impressed, you know, especially when he did the trip in the 5th round to turn that round in his favor. It was just brilliant. So can't give Francis more praise, in my opinion. He's a deserving champion. He showed that, and now for me, I think when you're looking at him, how are you going to beat this guy? Because even if it's not even like you can wrestle him anymore. No one's taking him down. He's actually doing the wrestling. And when John Jones is sitting looking at that, I'm not sure what the route to victory is for him in there.
Yeah, I agree, and I think John Jones might just want to stay retired, to be honest with you. But you really can't take a lot away from Ciryl, except the fact in the 5th round. Now, when I watched it, I was sitting all over him. I'm like, man, that's such a stupid mistake, jumping the submission, trying to go for the heel hook when he could have stayed in top control. But when the judges' scorecards came out, one of them had it 3-1 Francis, so it was probably in his head that he needed to win that round and wasn't going to get it done by just sitting on him. But I think that could have been his path to victory. And like you said, great job by Francis getting out of that. And like, you just can't say enough about Francis Ngannou, the full evolution. Like last fight with Stipe, he showed he had added patience to his game. This time he showed he'd added wrestling. And I think that probably going into the fight, Lopez and Gane were probably confident that if they would either like cancel each other out, or if anything, Ciryl had the advantage on the ground. So just threw a loop in everyone's plans, and it was a great path to victory by him. And they must have worked on a lot of stuff in camp. Thank God no sparring footage was shown of that.
And yeah, and also just on Ghana, it would have been disappointing if he actually won because he didn't do a lot. It was reminiscent of the Rosenstruck fight where he kind of just hit him with a few leg kicks and was on his way to winning the decision by doing that. And we said it last night, I don't like the point fight in a heavyweight, and I especially don't like it when you get fights like that. But Francis really just kicked the whole thing on its head, and just adding into that, the fact he had a busted knee, torn MCL, I think it was, damaged ACL. And to see him be able to pull all this off with that injury, with all the pressure on top of him, I think it was just, you know, an elite level performance. And the shame about it at the end is that Dana White wasn't there to put the belt on him, didn't turn up at the post-fight presser. I know we spoke about this a little bit off camera, but what did you make of that whole situation?
Well, that was what I made about it the most. So I watch every press conference after the fights right away, and I didn't watch this one once I found out Dana wasn't there. So I'm still gonna watch it. But like, to what you said, I don't think that there's a possibility that he could be that petty, because he, like, Dana White knows how the business works. That's just such a bad look on him. Like that. Like, I'm a big Dana White fan, and I'm even sitting here like, if he did that, then that like makes me lose a lot of respect for the guy. So I don't think there's got to be more to it, right? There's got to be more to it. I don't think he just wouldn't do that. And I still, like,
You
I
would
think
really
that
hope so.
yeah, and by all accounts, I thought that their relationship was sort of maybe kept coming towards getting back on track. It wasn't as, from what I was hearing, it was maybe there was still like a stalemate in contract talks, but there wasn't that animosity that was there at the beginning, of that hatred. So I really am still curious to see what comes out of that, and I'm looking forward to this week finding out what's up with that story. But yeah, really surprising. You want to see Dana put the belt on everyone, and I don't remember the last time I saw Dana put or someone that wasn't Dana put a championship belt on a guy, if ever.
Yeah, and I think the worrying thing, well, the reason people are going from, are acting like this is what has actually happened with Dana, basically throwing a hissy fit is because he was there when Davison Figueiredo won the title. He was there and he was putting it on him. He seemed happy enough, but then he's gone. You don't want to speculate too much, but perhaps he's sick, perhaps a family emergency popped up. You never know with these type of things. So,
yeah,
I'm with Dana. I just said it. He's not. It just seems a bit out of character. I don't think he's that much of a bitch, really, that he would do something like that. That's what I like to think, but a lot of people don't agree. So very interested to see how all that plays out this week.
Even if he was, like, the PR look has got to be in the back of his mind. Like, he knows how bad that looks. He's never done anything that, like you said, he's not that much of a bitch. Like, I just can't. I'm so intrigued to see what comes of this, and to hear his like press statement or whatever they say, or hear Ngannou talk about it, or whatever's next. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's up with that situation.
Yeah, and the thing with Ngannou is he seems quite happy to resign on the right terms. Then also today, it seems like Anthony Joshua is going to step aside and allow Fury to fight Alexander Usyk. So that takes that whole situation out of the equation, basically. So Francis Ngannou is free to, it seems like nailed on that he's going to re-sign with the UFC. So why wouldn't the UFC president want to be pictured with the guy who's going to re-sign with the UFC and be their heavyweight champion, what seems like for as long as he wants? Because I think if anyone's going to beat him, it would be Ciryl Gane, the other day, and it weren't. So I'm sure it's something we can speak about all day, and I'm sure it's something we'll be speaking about in the coming weeks and months. But we want to move on, because before that we had a really fun title fight between Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, and for me this asks more questions than it actually answers, because another nip and tuck fight. It seems like we've got to get a fourth after this. I think a lot of people were split on who should have won. Who do you think should have won?
I think Figueiredo should have won. The 3 knockdowns and then the two leg trip knockdowns. Like, they really stand out to me, especially at the end of the 4th round when he dropped him. I think he was losing that round, and that I think he still might have ended up losing that round, but it really shifted the tide going into the final round. And I think that, like I called in the predictions, I said that this was going to be a great fight, and it was. So it was sort of like, I think I would be a little more upset. I think Figueiredo would have been robbed a little bit more had Moreno won, but I can see the argument, but I think it's the right decision. I think Figgy won. And what you said on the pre-show, I didn't think there needed to be a third of this. I really thought Moreno had the upper hand. I think Figgy had to win a fight to get back into that title fight. But we have to see a fourth now. It's 1-1-1, and all, like, the only decisive one was Moreno in the second. Figgy's got the other 2. Well, one was split, but yeah, we got to see a fourth, and then after that, it's time to move on with the lightweight division, because I can't even remember another flyweight fight that's happened recently. Like, it's just that whole division is just overshadowed by this rivalry.
Yeah, and this is my worry with the fight, because obviously it's the similar situation with Max Holloway and Volkanovski, where Volkanovski clearly beat Holloway the first time, but then the second fight, I thought Holloway quite clearly won. So it just puts something into a situation that doesn't need to be there. And it's similar with this. Moreno won the second fight clearly. There was no need for a third fight, but they did it. And now we've got to do a fourth fight, and it's getting a bit ridiculous. But the performance itself, I thought both fighters looked really good. Brandon, I think, maybe got a bit carried away with the crowd and things like that. He seemed to be messing about a bit in there. And as he was doing that, he was getting caught and losing rounds. But I really couldn't score it. I thought it was that close. I didn't put as much weight into the knockdowns as other people did, because this isn't boxing. That's not how we scored it. And Moreno was never really hit from any of them knockdowns, whereas some of the damage he'd done, although he might not have dropped his opponent, Figgy was wobbling. He was, his eyes rolling. He was all over the place at points. So I think they both did as much damage as the other, and I don't put too much weight into that. But no issue with Figueiredo winning. I think it was a really polished performance of him, especially after last time getting mopped. But I think it's absolutely definite that we're going to see a 4th fight now. I think it would be really harsh on Brandon Moreno if we didn't.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, so we can look forward to that, and hopefully that's done and dusted then. But really, these guys could fight 10 times, and it'll be close 10 times. So I think at some point, one of them is going to get shafted, and one of them is going to miss out on a deserved rematch. And I think it should have been last time, and Figueiredo should have missed out, but this time Moreno might get screwed as well. So again, interested to see how that plays out. At flyweight, there doesn't seem anyone who's like actually knocking at the door, so they could buy a bit more time and things like that. So that's what I expect to happen.
Well, one other thing that stood out to me is like Figueiredo's known as a power puncher, and it was weird that Moreno clearly in the fight had a distinct power advantage. Like just the way he was throwing his hands, is clearly his power's gotten a lot better. And Figueiredo, I don't want to say it's gotten lesser, but he's clearly worked on rounding out his game, and that's taken away from the style of him just throwing a right hand all the time. So whatever he did with Cejudo in the camp, he looked ready. I think we knew Figueiredo was going to come in looking ready. And like you said, yeah, like there's no one knocking at the door on flyweight, at least in the Max Holloway and Volkanovski rivalry. Like Max has gone back and fought other guys before they booked the 3rd fight. So yeah, it's just back to back to back to back. We're going to see four fights in a row between the same 2 guys. It's interesting, but yeah, we got to see the 4th one now.
Yeah, I think the power thing is more about chin. I think Moreno is just tough as nails, and although Figueiredo had the power to drop him, he was never actually hurt. It just pushed him over basically. Whereas when Moreno would land, I think the cut does come into it, and Figueiredo probably does struggle at the weight, even though he come at 124, and he looked impressive. I think he's unable to take the same shots that Moreno can take as a natural, comfortable flyweight. So, I think that is the difference. Figueiredo might be the more powerful guy, but when Moreno cracks clean, he throws everything into his shot, and Figgy can't. He did stand up to it, but he looked on wobbly legs a lot of the time, and that's what made it close for me. But yeah,
one other thing, Moreno has second to none head movement. He's got some of the best head movement I've ever seen, and Figueiredo has some of the best feints I've ever seen. So those kind of counter each other. And like, you see a lot of like feint, head movement. And it really like counteracted and showed their styles off a lot more because of that.
Yeah. And before that, we had Michel Pereira, Andre Fialho. If you remember in the last show, I was kind of predicting an upset here. I thought, for value for money, this is where to put your money down. I didn't end up putting any money down. I like keep hold of mine most weeks, but it almost looked like it was going that way for a minute, but Michel Pereira really turned it on. Rounds 2 and 3 and managed to eke out the win. But what did you make of it?
Well, like I said, I don't think we're going to ever see that old Michel Pereira again. No more like against Tristan Connolly, back flipping around the cage and stuff like that. He's still got a flashy style, but that's gone. And what impressed me about him was, you're right, I actually did have money on that fight. I had Pereira on a parlay, and it was nerve-wracking, let me tell you, because Fialho was clean with that jab. He was fighting behind the jab the whole fight. He's coming in. He's got good boxing. And where it really got me nervous was Pereira's never been tested like that. And like with that kind of like capoeira flashy fighter style, like just natural, like a human reaction is to question like this guy's toughness. You know what I mean? But I was impressed, man. He showed he's tough as nails, and he hung in there. He kept eating him. His face was dinged up after the first round, and he came away and got the win, and he clipped him a lot clean. But I think Fialho's here to stay. He looked good in there. Yeah,
and I think with a bit more notice, we actually could have seen that upset. Obviously he was only on a week or two's notice, I think, Fialho. So not the best prep, especially for someone you want to put a high pace on in Michel Pereira to try and tire him out. He probably just didn't have it in the tank. But yeah, very good performance nonetheless from both guys. And Michel moves on, and Andre, as you said, he hits the stage, is 27 years old, looks the real deal. So we'll look forward to seeing him next time. And before that, we were saying this is something of an acid test for Saeed Nurmagomedov against Cody Stamann, and he really just passed it with flying colours. Guillotine submission, first round, made it look easy when other guys kind of, had to drag Stamann through the distance. He just wiped them out straight away. Impressive.
Yeah, this would be probably the worst fight ever to get up for a beer in the first round. It was over before you could blink your eyes, man. That was ridiculous. And like I said, his striking is unbelievable. It set up the guillotine, and yeah, that was it for Stamann. He got clipped a couple times early. I think that spinning body kick early really affected him, because that's as soon as that spinning body kick came around, that's when you saw Cody Stamann become a wrestler, and it just didn't work out for him. So as far as the gambling front, that one wasn't too nerve-wracking for me. That one worked in my favor real quick. But yeah, Saeed's looking legit in my opinion.
Yeah, that was a huge win. Beat him more convincingly than Marab did. I think Jimmy Pereira went to decision as well. Even Aljamain Sterling, he got him in the second round with that leg lock stretch thing. But no one's done him that quick. I don't think anyone's ever done Stamann in the first round. So really, super impressive. And I think everyone's now waiting for him to probably be ranked in the coming days, or get a ranked opponent next. And just for another guy at bantamweight too. Like I was speaking to Jack Shaw, who was meant to fight Nurmagomedov last week, and just about how stacked this bantamweight division, because there's probably talent-wise about 30 guys in that division who are all worthy of being ranked, but there's only 15 spots. So it's going to be super exciting to see how all this plays out in 2022. And Nurmagomedov's definitely one of them guys to look out for.
One other thing I noticed with him, it's like with Dagestani fighters, especially a lot of them are just pure born wrestlers. When you have the ones like that are strikers first, like Nurmagomedov, like light heavyweight Ankalaev, those guys who are like strike oriented guys, once they start putting it on you with the strikes and you become a wrestler, you forget that they're obviously able to wrestle too. So it's like the dual threats is just like Khabib. When you got to respect their striking, that's when the game changes for you. And he's a serious dual threat in that division.
Yeah, and before that we had a really impressive debut from Michael Morales against Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles dropping down to from middleweight to welterweight, and I was quite interested to see how he gets on. And I think he looked quite he looked in brilliant shape. I don't think he looked underweight or looked malnourished or looked like he'd really had a tough gut. He looked fine, and just Michael Morales was losing the fight until he went, cracked him, finished him, first round KO. It was a brilliant debut.
Yeah, it really was. He's young too, only 23 years old. So he was 10-0 coming in, and he's 11-0 now. So you look at that, and like Giles, that's a guy who's fought Ryan Spann, as we said before, at light heavyweight. So the weight cut obviously there's questions that come in with that, right? So, I mean, yeah, he caught him clean, and that was it. I thought Giles was gonna win that. He looked like he had him there, and it looked like the experience was gonna start coming into play with Morales, but you catch a guy and you move on to your next fight. It just happens like that sometimes.
Yeah, actually 13-0 is Morales, and
my bad, yeah, 13-0.
As you say, at such a young age, and Trevin Giles is no pushover, as we were mentioning last time. He's got some really legit wins. Delidze, James Krause on the record, Ryan Spann, Brandon Allen. There's he's no pushover at all. So to even be matched up with him in UFC debut, that's a tough out. And then to go and beat him first round KO, it's super impressive. So I'm sure Morales is someone we'll be hearing a lot about in the coming years and months and years. And yeah, can't wait for his next one. And then obviously we had a lot of moving about with the undercard. Unfortunately, Topore fell out. Who else fell out? Rodolfo Pereira fell out. So a bit of a weekend card, but we end up getting this as a featured prelim. It's a really fun fight between Victor Henry and Raoni Barcelos. Henry was a pretty significant underdog on this, and he's managed to pull out the bag. I think he was 3-4-1, something like that. Brilliant performance.
Yeah, that's where my wallet fell apart on the night, was this fight. That was a tough one for me to watch, but honestly, hands down fight of the night. If I come out with one takeaway from UFC 270 is, holy shit, this Victor Henry guy has some hands, because Barcelos fought a good fight as a 4-1 favorite, and he just got pieced up, unanimous 30-27. Like, this guy's hands are lightning, man. I don't think he might be one of the better prospects we've ever seen come out of the Contender Series. What did you think of that fight? I loved it. I thought hands down it was the fight of the night.
It was a brilliant fight. I think Barcelos is being a bit harsh done on the cards. I did think he was in the fight.
I thought he got one of the rounds. I did. I thought it was. Yeah.
So when you look at the cards, it's 30-27. It's on all cards. Seems like he's been absolutely, dominated start to finish, but it really was pretty 50-50. And I think Henry just did, you know, the slicker work and just a bit more volume. But Ellis was 100% in that fight. And just a brilliant debut from Henry, and to cash it at that big of a dog and to look that good against a really talented fighter was just super impressive.
Yeah, the way he's throwing his hands with those quick combos, he kind of reminded me of Rafael Fiziev a bit. Like the 1-2s he was coming in with, they kind of mirrored each other's styles there. Not the same like kickboxer, of course, but yeah, it's kind of what I was thinking. I was getting a big Fiziev vibes from the way he was throwing his combos. Really lightning hands on that guy, man. I'm a Victor Henry fan now. I don't know what else to say.
It's going to be fun while he's here, because I think he's like 34. He wants to be rushed through these at this division. As we said, he's another bantamweight who is in that stacked division, so there'll be plenty of opponents for him, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here, who he fights next, and also with Ellis.
He dropped a great promo after too. He said he's got 1 or 2 title runs in him. I'm 34. I'm here and make a run, and yeah, just like you said, that's what. Hopefully, we see that out of him, because I'm a fan of this guy.
Yeah, and another brilliant debut that from one to another. Jack Della Maddalena, I'm probably butchering that name, against Pete Rodriguez. I do think they set Pete Rodriguez up for a fall here. I think he just got a few days' notice against a guy who's got some slick hands, and he just by 2 minutes into that fight, he was bloodied up, he was busted, and in the end, it was a brilliant combo, but it was just on the night, it was a bit of a mismatch, but definitely one of the best performances I've seen on the card.
Yeah, the reach there was just P. Rodriguez. He's got power, but his punches are so short and compact, and like when he couldn't get inside on Maddalena, like it just wasn't even a contest really. And he was fighting a good fight. He clipped him a couple times early, but once those hands started flying and he managed the distance well, it was game over. He started really piecing him up bad.
Yeah, and that's a really exciting prospect, because I think he's in his mid-20s, early 20s, something like that, making that type of debut. I know the opponents will get tougher, but yeah, super impressed by Jack. And another fight we had, which is for me probably like an early contender for round of the year, Matt Frevola against Gennaro Valdez. Valdez got dropped 4 or 5 times, but he was in this fight, you know, every so often he lands on his own, but he just couldn't stay upright for long enough to make any type of dent on Matt Frevola, who looked fantastic. And yeah, really fun fight for as long as it lasted.
Yeah, the steamroller Frevola, you gotta love that nickname. But yeah, that was a crazy one too. Early candidate for round of the year, like you said. I mean, what can I say? The guy got dropped about 4 or 5 times, and I forget who the ref was in that fight. Was it Beltran? But it looks like he was doing a great job of like kind of locking eyes, making sure he was good and keeping him in it. But eventually, pulled away with that one.
Yeah, it was so frantic, so fast paced. I know a lot of people saying probably it should have been stopped earlier, but for me, it was fine. Like, he kept popping straight back up, even though he might have been flashed knocked out. He seemed to pop straight up, so the referee didn't even have a chance to get him until right at the end. And then it was a good call in the end, because yeah, super fun fight for as long as it lasted. And
that was the one that got me into the night, and that was really one when the crowd started picking up too. There's always that one fight in the middle of the card that really starts to get the energy going, and that was this one on the night.
Yeah, and before that, Vanessa Damopoulos, she had a really standout performance, a lovely like bit of an exchange with Joe Rogan on the mic. So she got dropped, she pulls off the arm submission, then she starts fangirling over Joe Rogan, jumps in his arms, and she really, made a name for herself. One of the stars of the night at UFC 270, and that's on the Fight Pass prelims.
She said to Joe Rogan, she's like, I woke up when I hit the ground. So speaking of flash knockouts, I mean, that was crazy. Yeah, once she got dropped, that was a clean shot from was it Juarez? Yeah, Juarez. Yeah, so that was a clean shot, and then she went to jump. Like, I think she probably had her clearly ready to finish her, and then just got her with the armbar.
Yeah, and opening up the night was your girl from your hometown, Jasmine. She looked fantastic, dominant. I think Kay Hansen looked a bit undersized at flyweight, and she probably should be thinking about going back down. But Jasmine's definitely not undersized that weight, and that was a brilliant win for her.
Yeah, like I said, she fights from the outside. She just used that reach to her advantage and won decisively as an underdog 3 rounds to 1. So there's been a lot of articles in the home papers here and stuff. Everyone's really happy for her, and we're really getting behind her in Niagara here. So yeah, we want to see more.
Brilliant, and that's us wrapped up. That's card top to bottom done. obviously it weren't the highlight Ngannou knockout that everyone's looking and waiting for, but it was a brilliant performance nonetheless. And for fans of Ngannou to see that evolution was insane. And then before that, we had another epic title fight between these guys. We were probably going to meet at least a couple more times inside the octagon. Hopefully it's not back to back, and then some really standout performances from, debutants and prospects and things like that. So it had a lot to like this card, and I guess it just roll on to the next one now.
Yeah, I can't wait for that next one. I really hope Whittaker gets it done, but I just don't see it happening, even as a fan of his. No matter how well he can have how good of a camp he has, no matter how much he rounds out his game, they're both just elite strikers at the end of the day. So it's kind of that whatever Whittaker can do, Izzy can do better sort of thing. So, and he's so smart that I can't see him getting caught. But nonetheless, I don't think it's going to be like the first fight. I think Whittaker's going to have a much better performance. I was going to ask, what do you think about if we get a prediction for this weekend's event, Strickland and Hermansson?
I'm a big fan of Strickland. I think, besides all the talk, he's actually a really fun fighter. And I think he might be the guy who can give Izzy some problems down the line, because he's just got that ferocious pace and that, that never say die attitude. He's just going to storm at him and just really put a pace on him. And it's similar to Vettori, but Vettori doesn't necessarily have the tank like Strickland does. And I think
Strickland's a little more skilled than Vettori.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to be interesting down the line to see him, but to get past Jack Hermansson's not going to be an easy task as well. So, but I honestly think...
But I think it's a good matchup for Strickland Hermansson, because he's got he can grapple with him if he has to, but he's just got way more of that warrior spirit, and I can just see him. He's got good hands too. So yeah, Strickland is a really fun fighter. I like him. Besides the fact that he says absolutely outrageous things. If he gets
past Hermansson, I think that might be enough for the title shot. I honestly think if he gets past Hermansson, starts talking smack at Adesanya is, pretty much bereft of opponents except for Robert Whittaker right now. So I think he'd love that, because obviously he's been teeing up that Darren Till fight for a while, and that's because Darren Till is a good talker. Sean Strickland's just as good and a bit more relevant at the minute. So a big win next week. He's very much in the picture, and for me, he's the guy who might cause some problems. He also might get knocked out cold because he might just run into something, but he also might be able to do something. So very interesting. And it was just a great way to kick off the year. A big heavyweight fight really started off, and we just all systems go now. We've got UFC 271 in a few weeks, but with, as you say, first Strickland Hermansson, really fun fight, really fun card.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on again, man, and enjoy. We'll catch up before the next one.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me. Speak soon.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKickMMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.